and we were actually traveling in a boat from one end of the Washington Lake to another to Bill Gates' home, and he was standing in one corner. And I walked up to Vince and said hello.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Being Yourself show, where world's renowned thought leaders and best-selling authors share their wisdom and insight with you so that you can achieve your goals and be a better version of yourself. My name is Ajay Mathur, and my guest today is somebody really, really special. I'm so delighted and feeling privileged to have him on this channel. I'm talking about none other than Dr. Ajay Chowdhry, co-founder of HCL Technology, which is a $40 billion company as of today, if you look into the stock market. Mr. Ajay Chowdhry is not just a great businessman, but he's also created a massive impact on every life he has come across. He has recently authored all his experience about HCL Technology's growth and his family and friends and hobbies in the book Just Aspire, which I highly recommend everybody should do read. Without further delay, I'm so glad to welcome Padam Bhushan awardee, which is the third highest civilian award in India, Dr. Ajay Chowdhry. Dr. Ajay, welcome.
Thank you.
So let's start with the book, sir. You say in Just Aspire, I think in the first chapter itself, you say that your aspiration should never die and your passion should never dim, because these are the soul of entrepreneurship. And I think that it's not just entrepreneurship, but to have a happy and fulfilling life. But the problem is that the vast majority of people keep these aspirations hidden beneath their primary role as an employee or as a breadwinner or whatever, and they don't dare to dream. So to start with, how can we inspire those people to take that first step towards their aspiration, or even help them realize that they have one?
Well, actually, aspiration is something that comes from within. And if you look at what you want to achieve in life and you have some idea about what you want to do, then whatever you want to do, if you can aspire, then that aspiration will take you places. And I've always said something which is A is greater than R. A lot of times people tell me that they don't have the resources and therefore they cannot create a business or whatever. And how will we actually succeed without resources? But if you look at A is greater than R, A stands for aspiration, R stands for resources. So Dr. C.K. Prahalad used to say, if you have the aspiration, resources happen. And that's really how HCL happened. We had just 1.86 lakhs. And we needed a license and we needed money. And it all happened.
And it's actually so true, because a lot of people don't really try that one thing because they think that, oh, I don't have money, or I don't have a good team, or I don't have enough skills.
Yeah.
Right? And these all are resources, definitely. And I think they kind of get stuck in decision making, which is, you talk a lot about decision making in the book also. And I think I can recall one of the conversation that you had with somebody about decision making. It's a big problem. So not just in professional life, but in people's personal lives also. Is there any particular advice or something with your experience which helped you taking big or even small decisions, not just in your business, but also in your personal life?
Well, I did mention in the book about someone I met in Silicon Valley, and he was an entrepreneur, and he told me that if you have to take 10 decisions every day, and take them fast, don't sit on decisions, because you will miss something or the other. So his thinking was that you take 10 decisions, maybe you make 2 decisions which are wrong. You can correct them, but at least the 8 decisions that you made on the day you were supposed to make will keep you going faster.
How different it is in business versus in personal life?
I think you should do both. It should be the same in whether it's business or personal life. I think you can't separate the two, because either you are a decision maker or you're not. There's nothing in between. And there's nothing called half pregnant. You know, that's what I always say.
Yeah. So I think if you are, is it fair to assume that if somebody is good decision maker in their personal life, then chances are that they will reflect that in professional world as well?
Yes, definitely.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I think that's a really big problem with people nowadays. And I mean, I struggle sometimes to take decisions because you don't always know what could be the pros and cons, right? So you can only see a certain amount of things in future. We cannot predict everything. And that's where the fear comes up and creates so much anxiety, and then you can't really take decisions. Is it,
sometimes people start looking too much at data to take decisions. And I think you should restrict yourself. Yes, you may take a couple of days to take a decision in your business, looking at data, but don't go beyond a point. I call it, don't polish the apple too much. If you polish the apple too much, the skin comes off, and the skin is the best part of the apple. So stop doing that. Just take the decision. And if you've taken the wrong decision, you can correct it.
It's like analysis paralysis. Don't get into that.
Yes.
Okay. And oftentimes when you are taking decisions, especially in business, and I'm just citing some examples from your book, that's where you had to take some tough decisions when you were selling something to your Chinese counterparts and you had to take like 30% below your expected rate. And that's where I saw like decision making and negotiation, they're kind of coming together.
Yes.
So where do you decide, whether to break the deal or make the deal? And this is what happens. So, and this is another sales skill, and you talk a lot about sales also. So first of all, in this particular example where you took such a big hit and you still made it work, which is like 30% down your expectations, how one can go about doing a great negotiation and still kind of stay in the game?
You see, in the first few discussions, you need to stand still. Because if you start giving discounts too early, then you really don't know where you're going. You're on a slippery slope. So I think you need to stand still. And that's what we used to do in China. 2 days, 3 days. Sometimes you have to have the patience to stand still. And you just give it piece by piece. You don't give it in one shot. Because the moment you give it in one shot, you know that you're going to be asked for more. So it's best to do it in steps. So you start with 10%, then go to 20%, and then go to 30%.
Do you decide beforehand that this is the least you can go when you start?
Yeah. That we know. Always we know where is the limit. And that limit I give to my salespeople. And I said, if this is a large deal, this is the worst case scenario for you.
And when you're saying that, okay, stand still and keep giving bit by bit, sometime let's link it to the sales process, right? That's where you're trying to sell something and it's just not happening. So you just keep pushing. It's even if you're not negotiating, but you're, let's say, trying to get their attention, right? And sometimes it feels like, because sales, I know you've said it in the book, and I totally agree that sales is one of the most important skill one can have in your personal professional life. But if you look around, especially in India, I don't know about other places in the data, but people don't like to get into sales because they think, oh, I don't want to be thick-skinned and being rejected by people. How can one overcome that kind of anxiety with regards to sales?
I consider sales a life skill. And if you don't possess that life skill, I think you're going to miss out a lot in life. Because whether it is to your wife or to your parents or to your boss, you always have to sell something or the other. Either you're selling an idea or you're selling a travel plan or something or the other. So sales is, to my mind, a very critical life skill. And for an entrepreneur, and especially for the CEO entrepreneur, I always say, if you don't know how to sell, then you'll have trouble running your company. And if you have salespeople in your company and you're the CEO and you don't know how to sell, how are you going to manage the salespeople? Because they will take you for a ride. All the time they will say, oh, this business is coming, that business is coming, and you're not able to go to the next level to figure out whether it is really going to happen. So, and that makes it very critical to have that kind of skill.
So in HCL, you have programs for sales itself, right? You train people to do that. So of course, it's not possible to tell us more about it, but can you give us some idea of how do you fundamentally shift in the mindset of people from being non-salesy people versus salesy people?
Yeah, we actually used to use Harvard Professor McClelland's strategy, which is all about sussing out a person's achievement orientation. So either you have achievement orientation, or you have empathy, or something which is makes you come closer to people, or you have empower, which is you try to influence people by power. So basically, you need to look for people who have need for achievement, and that process is not very difficult. We give people a couple of photographs, and we tell them to write an essay on each photograph. And based on that, by the words that they use, we are able to figure out whether they have need for achievement, or need for affiliation, or need for power. And for salespeople and CEOs, we definitely look for need for achievers.
I agree with that. There is some study, I can't remember exactly who did it, but what they did, they gave the same article to be sold on eBay, and different people wrote different descriptions. So it's like they were selling different stories. So somebody said, okay, this is, let's say it's a wooden horse toy. And they said, okay, this toy was taken from, I don't know, 10 years ago from somewhere, and there was a story behind it. It used to be with a girl or something. So they could achieve more on the same article. Yeah.
You see, we used to do something like once we have done this whole, sussing out the person, then the next step is to do an interview. And during the interview, we spring a surprise on them. As they walk in, as they sit down, we say, okay, sell me this pen, whatever lying on the desk. And that really makes them, respond in a particular way, which is what we like to see. So if we find that this person is really not able to communicate or imagine things or create strategies on the spot, then he or she doesn't have that real killer instinct. That is also very critical for us to, establish.
I know that you've written the book, you asked this question to a lot of people. So who has come up with the best answer and what it was to sell a pen?
I think there was a chap in Madras long ago, and he came up with the most amazing answers to many things that we had given him to sell. He was not given a pen to sell, he was given something else. And the way he conjured up the whole idea of selling that product was quite amazing, because he just took it to a different level. And he would actually use so much imagination to actually sell the product to us that we were floored.
So did he use a lot of different stories, or he had some strategy?
Yes, he actually created strategies to actually be able to sell the product. And he actually added so much value to the product that he was selling. So for example, if it was a pen, then why do you need a pen? And why do you need a fountain pen? And why do you need ink-based fountain pen? All those things he would add. And that's really what it becomes, is a very interesting way.
So going into the detail and try to see what value those details can provide.
Correct.
Yes. They are okay, great. And there's another thing I wanted to ask you about was your vision. And you, of course, had a good vision about HCL, and maybe you can see the success of HCL today. But how exactly? So first of all, what was your initial vision for HCL? And in your idea, in your view, did you achieve it? That's one. And another question I want to ask is, should people have a vision for their personal lives also? And if they do, then anything that you can share, how they can go about it?
You see, vision is, to my mind, a 5 to 10 year story. And you can't look beyond that. So when we started HCL, we had a very simple vision, which is microprocessors were just coming in. And we knew there were just 100 computers in the country. So we said we must make a computer based on microprocessors. So our thought was, let's take the microprocessor and change the world. And that's really what we went about doing. And at that stage, IBM was importing refurbished products into the country. And we went about telling people how a microprocessor-based computer will be faster, cheaper, and long-lasting. And it will return the investment that you actually made. Although our products were priced quite high those days. As a matter of fact, I remember somebody telling me that your product is 18 times the price of an ambassador car.
Okay.
But we still sold it.
Yeah, because you probably showed the value.
Yeah.
There's more than the value of
That's
the
right.
car.
That's right. That's right. And we always used to give the salespeople ROI calculator. So they could actually, on the spot, work out the savings that people would have on buying a computer. So savings on inventory, savings on order processing, savings on customer support, savings on inventory, all of those.
What about your personal life? Did you have any vision, like when you came out of that Jabalpur, your engineering college, and maybe even before or after when you started your job in DCM, did you have any personal vision? Where do you want to see yourself in, let's say, 10, 20, 30, 40 years? And was it something similar to what you have achieved, or was it different?
Not really. Originally, I just said that I don't want to be in R&D. I didn't want to be doing engineering. I want to be in sales of engineering products. So that was what I was clear about. And in my mind, I had imagined that I would head the sales organization of a company at some stage. But at that stage, nothing was more clearer than this. And then as you sort of keep going, your vision becomes clearer and clearer. And that's really what makes you as a person. So one of the things that I had kept in mind all through is that I had many interests and not just my job. Yeah. And that sort of makes you a well-rounded person, and that's what I believe in.
I had seen that in the book. You are a singer, and in every party you go, you're kind of heart of the party, which is really, really nice. And you have so many other things that you do. You just said that it does make you a rounded person, but let's say having so many different interests, what other value it adds to your main interest? So to say, in your case, like your singing and your love for animals, etc. How did that contribute into your success at HCL?
You see, when you're a well-rounded person, you can communicate with anybody on anything. And your conversations and your narratives become much more interesting. Otherwise, you're a nerd, just one subject, and you're sitting with people and just talking about computing, you're not going to get anywhere. So the way you have to get to people is through multiple interests that you have. Like I had great interest in space. So if somebody was interested in space, I could talk for hours. And I had great interest in books. I had great interest in literature, great interest in films, singing, music, jazz, Hindi music, classical music. So, all that.
So onto that, I wanted to ask you this thing. When I was reading in the book, I also thought about it. The space programs, like in India, the private sector in space versus what we see in US, there are so many different companies, like billion-dollar companies starting from Elon Musk, and there are so many other people, like Naveen Jain has something on Moon. So how is it looking for India at the moment to our work in the private sector in space?
Well, actually, a few entrepreneurs started to work on it about 10 odd years ago. And that's the time when Google had a sort of a competition. And they said that if an entrepreneur could actually land a rover on the moon, they would be given an award of $1 million. And so this entrepreneur came and met me, and he said, I want to do this. I have gathered a team of people from ISRO, and I'm going to make this happen. So he convinced me to invest in the company. And he came through a friend who had also invested. And since I had great interest in space, I just took an hour to decide. And I said, okay, I'll invest. And then, of course, over the years, he actually went about creating the rover. But he got stuck at that time because the country was not open to giving access of rockets to private sector. So they tried like hell to get the ISRO to give them an opportunity to put their rover on the rockets, but they didn't allow it. And therefore, they lost that opportunity. There were close to about 20 odd people from all over the world who had participated. And by the way, no one succeeded. But these guys came very close to success because they had a working model of the rover. And later on, last 4 or 5 years, there's been phenomenal interest. And due to the fact that the government has created an organization called InSpace, which is headed by a friend of mine, Pawan Goenka. And they have opened up space to any private sector. So through a fund where I sit on the funds, IC, we've invested in a very interesting startup in Hyderabad who have actually developed multiple products for space. And the first thing that they've done is that they've created 3 sizes of satellites: micro satellite, mini satellite, and a slightly bigger satellite. Then they've also created a product on which the satellite can sit on a rocket. And they've also created a Earth station for satellite tracking. So these guys are doing very well. And last November, December, they actually launched 3 satellites. So many companies like that are now there in the country, close to 400, 500 startups. And some of them, I just went to IIT Madras and I saw one of them, who has actually made a rocket from 3D printing. So lots and lots of stuff is happening. And I think space sector is going to be a great growth area for India, because one of the things that we have learned to do is to be very frugal in our engineering. And that is what makes it so interesting, because the cost of using a rocket in India is so much lower. And therefore, the world is now turning to India to actually launch their satellites.
So what do you think, sir, for how many years before we'll have our first tea stall on Moon or maybe on Mars?
Well, I think you look at another 4 to 5 years and we will have something on the moon, because they're already planning a moon mission with humans. And that is planned in the next couple of years. And I think post that they have a very clear plan to actually go and occupy some place on the moon. Mars is still further away, but they were one of the first to actually be able to look at Mars. And that was a very successful project as well.
Okay, great. That's really fascinating, right? You can spend hours talking about what is possible in space. Okay, great. So another thing that you mentioned about your interest in films, and I read in the book that you're very good friends to Mr. Sharat Saxena, who is in Indian film industry, and he's your childhood friend. My question is that he's in a very different industry than where you are, right? So there would be hardly, I don't know if he talks to you about microprocessor, etc. Probably you do. But the question is, when you are losing, like I have had so many friends in my childhood, which I right now have no idea where they are because they chose a different career or they just went to different cities, etc. In your case, you've maintained the relationship for really, really, really long time. How did you put any extra effort into it, or it's just the chemistry between your friends, or what did you do to nurture your friendships and your relationships?
You have to do both. There is chemistry, obviously. And that happens when you actually even don't meet for 10 years and you start off from where you left off. Okay? So with the case of Sharat, for example, since I went off pretty much like you, I went off to Singapore from 1980 to 89. I lost touch. And then one day I was visiting Madras, and I was in a hotel and I had planned a get together of my team in Madras on that evening. And as I was entered the hotel, the lift opened, and who walks out but Sharat Saxena? So we reinvigorated our relationship. I immediately told him, I said, Sharat, since we are meeting just now, come and join the party.
Yeah.
So I took him upstairs and I introduced him to all my colleagues, and they were all thrilled to meet somebody like that. And that is because Sharat was quite deep into the southern, sphere. He had made lots and lots of movies in Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam. He was very successful.
Yeah, and his time span is really, really long. I still remember when I was very young watching some movies, and he used to be villain in some movies, then Mr. India and stuff like that. And you can see
that's right.
Baijan, so that's long, really long stint.
He's made about 250 odd movies.
Yeah. Okay, so in addition to your friends and other people, you have met some really influential people in the corporate world, such as Bill Gates, Tim Cook, and Steve Ballmer, for example, right? So is there anybody who you remember, like somebody who stands out, or something that they said that really, really, really inspired you? Is there anybody like that, and why?
Well, Ray Kurzweil. Ray Kurzweil, he's really one of the fountainheads for AI. And he created an AI engine, I think, about 30 odd years ago, when computing was not good enough, and he felt that an AI engine was needed to run AI. Over the years, he did a lot of work on pattern recognition, etc., etc. And then he became a futurologist. And he has talked a lot about singularity. And that's something that really fascinates me. That's why I call it's the future piece of what I wrote in my book. Future is all about when will computing overtake the brain, and that's when singularity will happen. So his prediction was that 2045 singularity will happen, and he wrote a book called singularity. And he also, interestingly, I met him in a gathering at Bill Gates' home, and we were actually traveling in a boat from one end of the Washington Lake to another to Bill Gates' home, and he was standing in one corner, and I walked up to him and said hello, and it turned out he was very good, and we started talking a lot about. I said, I've read all your books, and I mean, very. I've been following you from a long time. Then he talked to me and said that, look, now I'm working with a MD friend of mine, and we are working on a concept of how to live forever. Mm-hmm. And he gave me a pre-release copy of the book, which was called How to Live Forever. And he said, look, he took out a little bag of pills from his coat pocket, and he says, I have 60 pills a day, and I change my blood every weekend. And he says, I'm about 65, but my body parts are 45. So he says that if you, the body is like a chemical, factory. And if you keep your chemicals balanced perfectly, you can live a long time. And so he had actually preserved the DNA of his father. And he also talked about how at some stage he could recreate his father, and how memories can be like software and brain will be like hardware. So memories can be uploaded into a brain. So all these things were so fascinating for me. And later on, he went and created the Singularity University in California with Peter Diamandis. And I still follow a lot about him. And he came to India one day, and we had a very lovely session by him at the India Today conclave. But on my table, where there were 9 other people, they never understood what he was saying. So after the talk, I had to sit and explain to all of them what he was saying. And then the India Today team came up to me and said, since you know so much about him, can you please interview him? So that was my moment, which I really relish.
How old is he now?
Should be 75 to 80 somewhere.
Okay. And how is he doing? Good?
Very good.
Very good. I think I can see like he want to recreate his dad. And I believe he's talking in the sense of not just the intellect of his dad, but also the physical person, right?
Yeah, yes, somewhere like that.
I think we are getting there. It's like with the advancement of AI in ChatGPT-4 and whatever. I think it's not very far when people will be able to create their own persona. So like if I want to talk to Dr. Ajai Chowdhry, I would just talk to something on internet and he will respond to me as you would have given yourself.
Yeah. That sort of happens even today, in some ways, but not in a very sophisticated way. I think tomorrow it will be a lot more sophisticated. And then, what they call nanobots. Nanobots can enter your body and fix any cell that has got destroyed.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. And I was listening to one of the interview from Elon Musk, and he has his company which does that. The boats inside your brain. Neuralink. Is it Neuralink?
Yes.
What he says that with that, even the blind people who has never seen will be able to see.
Absolutely right.
It's really fascinating, right? The sky is the limit, as they say.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. So there is there are a few things that I really love about the book, sir. And one was that you've always spoken a lot about people who, not just in your professional life, but everywhere, right? You've literally had one chapter about the people who have touched your life. And I'll ask a question about them, a little later. But right now, I just wanted to know from you, how do you manage your work-life balance? So like in the UK, for example, if I just give you some stats, more than 30% people think that they don't have a good work-life balance. And 88% of people in the UK have said that they've experienced burnout in the last 2 years. And one more stat, more than 50% of people have switched job because of work-life balance. It's kind of very rare commodity to have. In your case, you didn't have a choice because you were building a like massive firm. So definitely there was a massive amount of work needed, but you somehow managed to have that balance. And I can see that in the book, in like every chapter of the book. How did you manage that, sir?
I think it's all about time management at the end of the day. And if you learn how to manage your time, and you learn how to, for example, running meetings with a very specific agenda and sticking to that agenda is very important. Lots and lots of times, you've written down an agenda for a meeting, and then suddenly somebody takes off on some other direction, and you lose half an hour like that. So that is where you have to stop people. You have to make sure that you stick to what you have decided to talk about and not talk about anything else. So it's sheer management of time. And it's not easy in the early days of setting up a company when you're really working 24/7. But I would say that little later, maybe 15 years later, my work-life balance became better. I could manage my time a whole lot better. But even then, I sort of consider myself, I consider work-life balance not that important. Because I think it's overstated and it depends on what you do. And this whole burnout situation happens because today the distractions are too many. So I think the phone creates a huge bunch of distraction and time it takes over. So social media and the phone, they take over so much of your time that you are actually not left with enough time to do other things. So therefore, managing your phone, managing your social media also becomes an important part. You don't sort of keep looking at the phone all the time. Like I enter into a meeting and I never look at the phone. So whatever is happening, let it happen. How does it matter? Maybe a couple of hours later, the world is not going to fall apart.
I think this is really a good point, and a lot of talk is happening on how to avoid distractions from your social media and phone. And people forget to realize that it's not just the time you're spending on those things, but there are two more aspects to it. One is when you're switching from that thing to something else. So that switching takes around 20 to 25 minutes before your brain gets adjusted to something new. That's one time waste. Another one is that, let's say you watch something, there's a lot of things happening in the world, right? It's not that when you stopped watching it, it will go from your head. It won't. It will just keep knocking your head. Those things that you saw, let's say you saw some war or whatever, and then it keeps coming. Oh, this is what is happening in the world, right? So it's kind of take your overall efficiency from it, isn't it?
Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Okay. So you've done quite a lot of things about this, improving productivity at workplace. You also had this your ODI strategy where you were giving like 1-day targets to people. And another thing that I really liked was the analogy between in cricket, like we have World Cup going on right now. So you had like batsman and bowler analogy where you say, most people want to bat. And I was like, if you ask me any day in cricket, what do you want to do, bat or ball? I'll always say bat, right? So you said that 19 out of 20 people say that they want to do bat. And then you say that those are the people who are more reactive versus the bowlers who are more proactive. So that example to me tells that the majority of world is actually reactive. Yeah. And how can one add that into them, like make that as a behavior so that they are more proactive than reactive?
Yes, I think I call it setting the field. And just the way bowler sets the field. When you walk into an organization and you want to sell something, you drop some points for the person who's buying and make sure that those 5-6 points that you drop are the ones where you have differentiation. So if you actually make sure that your product and service is something that he actually starts to desire, then he'll ask the same question from the competition. And once you've set the field, you can be successful. So that's really what it's all about. You need to be hugely proactive if you want to be successful. You need to anticipate. If you do not anticipate, you will be always, reactive.
And it's not just the people on the leadership position, but it applies to everybody.
Everybody.
Anything that you can advise to, I mean, you probably do advise to your staff, the leaders in your company, what it takes to become a successful leader?
I think I've always talked about people leadership. At the end of the day, it's all about people. And really, it's all about passion and your goal orientation that you need to keep always in front of you. And you have to stick to being very, you have to have perseverance to achieve that. So pride, passion, performance, all these things are connected. And so in our company, we used to genuinely talk all the time about the Indian mind. And we always used to tell people that Indian mind is different. And that's why the Indian mind succeeds all over the world. And that's why we are able to manage diverse set of people. Because when we start working in India, we always deal with diversity. Well, you might have a guy from Tamil Nadu or a Malayali guy or a Bengali guy, and you need to know how to manage them with their diversity. So those things are what make Indians very successful globally also. And I call it the people tree, because there are some things that by which you ensure that people working with you stay with you. Because in our hardware business, margins were low. We could not pay the highest salaries in the market, which Hewlett Packard could pay. So despite that, nobody left HCL, because we created a culture and we created the linkages with them, which were very, very close. And so they never thought about salaries. They thought about how do we make this company more successful. And that's what creates an organization. For example, I used to go around the office regularly. And later on, I learned it's called management by walking around. But I used to walk around and I used to sit with people and have a cup of coffee and have a chat about their parents and this and that. But this is something that I did pretty much every day. And the other thing that I did, which was very unique, was that each department, I used to have a coffee with them once a month with the whole team. And lastly, on New Year's, I would go and shake hands with everybody, whether it was a janitor or a general manager. And it took me 2 days to go and shake hands with everybody in Noida, where I had 2,000 odd people. But by the time I was done, my arm was falling off, but I still did it every year.
Wow. That's great. I think in that case, your company would have a core value as like people or care or something on those lines, was it?
Yes. We got for close to 7 years, we were adjudged the best company in terms of employee satisfaction.
Best company to work for. What were the core values of HCL? Generally, every company has few.
You see, I think ethics was a very important part of our core value. And then the other core values were around quality, serious quality orientation. And the other piece was respect for people. So these were the key values.
I think a lot of times the core values of companies are not given that much of attention. And I've seen that in my experience, like every company has core values, but if employees do understand it and kind of start living it, then it shows up overall in the success and growth of the company.
Yes.
And especially if it is in alignment with your personal core values, because a lot of people don't have, and everybody has, but they don't really know that these are my core values. They're my and there must be a kind of alignment between those two. Yeah. Okay, that's great. There's one thing I wanted to know. I just alluded to it before. There's one full chapter in your book at the end where you are thanking everybody. I mean, everybody has a chapter of acknowledgement, but it's not more than a page. In your book, it's much more than that. And you've like really literally thanked everyone, citing why you're thanking them, etc. So I can see that you're really grateful to them, and you're a person who's like very thankful to whatever God has given you. So I wanted to just get to know your views about gratefulness and how important it is to have that attitude, and how does it change you as a person?
Yeah. So actually, if you look at my book, the early pages do not have a thank you page. It is an aspiration page, and where I say that the millions of people who aspire to do something, I would like to see their dreams come true. So that's what I've said there. But when I wrote that chapter, I just wanted to make sure that I remembered all those who have actually worked with me and have helped me create what I am today. And in many manners, so many of them actually have lots and lots of gratitude for them. So that is why I wanted to express that quite clearly. And I felt that was necessary. So it consists of my friends, my doctors, and a whole bunch of other people.
Okay, so in the interest of time, I'll ask you one question that I ask every guest on my show, which is a lot of people say that, education is not updating as much as the world is. So I wanted to ask you, what, according to you, are the top 3 skills that schools are still not teaching, which are needed in order to have a successful and fulfilled life?
Well, actually, schools and colleges are sort of left behind. They have not changed in a lot of ways. Today, the skills required are quite different. And in the IIT Hyderabad, which I sort of founded with a director,
Yeah.
I sort of said that from day one that I don't want nerds coming out of this institute. I would like to see people who are well-rounded. So that's why we did something interesting. We added a minor in entrepreneurship because I felt that all students who come out of engineering should first aim to be entrepreneurs and then go and join a job. They should be job creators rather than, job
Employees.
Looking for employees. And secondly, we created something called fractals, where we had 30 odd different subjects that they could pick up and learn. And that's what made them well-rounded. So they could learn music, they could learn theater, they could learn astrology, any of these things. So that's how we should be creating the curriculum of institutions. The other thing that I'm quite particular about, because this is something that is very close to my heart, is that I want to make India a product nation in hardware. And this is something that I am actually trying to establish through my foundation called EPIC. And I'm also influencing the government in many ways to look at this very seriously. Because not a single engineering college in this country teaches you how to make a product. And so, we are all studying electronics, but beyond electronics, nobody knows what to do. So that's not good for us. So, now one thing very interesting is happening in schools in India is that there are short skilling pieces that are getting set up all over the country. And that is very nice to see, because all these people using their hands to create things is very important. And this is a skill that is essential for people when they grow. And secondly, in schools, they are still teaching in the old way. They need to open people's minds. Today, it's very rote learning. And this whole concept of rote learning has to go away, because they're not making people understand concepts. They are just getting them to learn everything by heart and just reproduce it in the paper that they have. So instead of having these kind of papers and yearly assessments, they should have short period assessments, and they should see how well the concepts have been understood. So this is some change that is required to be done. And then practically, very importantly, empathy towards others has to be taught also. That there is something called societal legacy that you need to create for yourself. So people should be aware of climate change and things like that. So those are all things that need to be taught very early, so that students can learn from the beginning not to waste. Lots and lots of waste happens. Like, for example, India is the second largest country in e-waste. And why does that happen? Because we tend to ape the West. Every product that we buy, if you go back to history, people used to make products for life. Today, products are made to fail. And so your Apple phone will stop working after 2 years. And you have to throw it away and buy another one. These are things that have to change. India, the culture is not of throwaway. Here, we even use a toothbrush for other things.
That's so true. Yeah, and you're right. Apple deliberately did it. I think they were penalized actually to do that. They didn't make their old phone's performance so low. That's so true. So I just like to summarize. So you wanted to have a well-rounded education, and people should have more giving attitude rather than being an employee, and have a creator mindset so that they can create more things. Have an open mind, and we need to change the way we teach things. So we need to learn how to learn, right? And then finally, you talked about empathy, which comes out as one of the top rated answer to this question. I've asked this question to over around 75, 80 people. and empathy scores really high. So thank you very much for sharing all this, sir. I really, really appreciate you giving your time and coming here and talking to us about it. I really appreciate it. And
Okay, thank you. It was good meeting you.
yes, sir. And there's one more thing. If there is a list of, the list of richest people generally has the financial wealth, and that's it. That's the measure. I believe that Forbes should give one more list wherein they have finance plus the impact that people have made, the contribution to the society, and the overall happiness and fulfillment of that person. And there should be another rich list with these attributes. And I think if there is a rich list like this, after reading the book, listening to you so many times on different platforms, I believe that you would be like top 10 of those because you have like a well-rounded life altogether. It's really admirable.
You see, actually, a lot of times when people have a lot of wealth, they are left with no friends.
True.
And that's a very sad state to be in. So I've always seen that from far, and I've seen those people how they feel at the end of their life. They are left all alone because of their wealth. They've kept away good people.
Yeah. Okay. All right, then. Thank you very much. And guys, if you have not yet read it, this is the book. It looks like this. I'll put the link of the book also down here. It's a really good read. It will help you travel the journey that Ajay sir has done and made HCL such a great, successful company. I will see you again with another exciting guest. Until then, you stay healthy and keep learning.